Labas and greetings from Vilnius in Lithuania on this beautiful late September's evening. And in this video, I'm going to give you 5 reasons to consider coming and spending time in this city, Vilnius, and in general in this country, Lithuania. So if you're new to this channel, I am Connor Klein, and in general, I help high-level men from North America, South America, and Western Europe with relocating for part of the year to this broader region. So includes here in the Baltic states and many other countries in the region. And I used to work as a lawyer, so I'm a little bit more informed and strict on things like rules and regulations for relocating and helping guys like you, if you are one of those guys who fits into that description in terms of living your dream lifestyle in this region. So with that said, let's go. 5 reasons Lithuania einam.
SAR Experience.
So the first reason I'm giving you to consider spending time in Lithuania is the value for money, because this part of Europe is what I call New Europe. I'll put a video about that if you want to know more up above in the card down below in the description. And the picks, the countries I recommend in this region, what I describe as emerging Europe within that New Europe. So that sounds a little bit convoluted, but basically because of countries like Lithuania was in the Soviet Union back in the day. Because of communism, their economies were grossly underdeveloped compared to economies further west in Europe, and also obviously compared to the US and Canada. And they have been catching up in the last, well, it's now going on 35 years. However, the cost of living has not caught up quite yet with that, like probably where you're watching this from. And as a result, I went and I looked for a comparable city to Vilnius in somewhere like the core Anglosphere, about the same size, because the population here is a little bit over 500,000 people. So I looked on Numbeo for a price comparison with Manchester, which is a major city in the UK, also similar size, and cost of living is about 25% cheaper here in Vilnius. And also the local purchasing power is 25% less than in Manchester. Rent was actually a little bit cheaper even here than that 25%. So that gives you a good ballpark figure to judge what you will get in terms of value for money, how far your dollar or your euro or your pound or yen or whatever currency that you're using back home, and how that translates into what you can do with that money if you come here. Of course, it is important to realize that you will only get that value for money if you are living here and actually managing your revenues remotely, because as I said, the local purchasing power here is also 25% less. So if you were to come and live here and work in a normal job, then presumably ceteris paribus, of course, with a few exceptions, maybe if you were some sort of, I don't know, English teacher that might be in higher demand here than, you know, back in the US or the UK, then in general, you're probably going to get paid 25% less as well. So if you are able to set up your lifestyle to manage your revenues remotely, then this can be very interesting as a place to set up in terms of value for money, because it's going to go further. Just as another comparison, if you compare it to, say, a city in Spain, I love Valencia, for example, it's pretty much around the same price level. And the weather is probably a little bit better in Valencia than it's going to be here, because it's Southern Europe as opposed to more Northern Europe. We're here obviously close to the Baltics, not quite on the seaside in Vilnius, although you can go out to Klaipėda, and there you will be on the Baltic Sea, all the way down the Curonian Spit to the famous, beautiful town of Nida, right on the border with the Russian exclave of Kaliningrad. So overall, you'll definitely get better value for money here than in North America, or in general, we'll say in Western Europe, with a few exceptions, like if you're in Southern Europe. So that's one of the main reasons why, for example, my clients consider here as being attractive. I actually just finished up a trip with a client who has been living my insider experience. So let's move on to the second reason to consider Lithuania. So reason number two is, I'm going to put it under social contact. What do I mean by that? Well, first of all, here in Lithuania, the level of English is quite high, especially here in the capital, Vilnius. Education First is a company that ranks the proficiency of English as a second language or as a foreign language across the globe, and they put Lithuania in the second category out of 5, so high proficiency. So that's kind of comparable to being in Poland, for example, so a little bit below what you're going to get in terms of English level if you go to, Scandinavia, like the Swedes and even the Dutch. We're not in Scandinavia, but also their English is almost as good as your Irish boys here, so it's not going to be that good, but it is pretty high, and that makes it very comfortable if you decide to come here, because Lithuanian is not spoken by a huge number of people. It's also not similar to English really in any way. It's kind of one of the oldest European languages. Is considered pretty close to Proto-European, and being able to come here and use English is a boon in the beginning. And unlike, say, neighboring Poland, where socially, if you don't speak Polish, in my experience, it's actually a real barrier to making friends and dating the local ladies. Here in Lithuania, it is less of a barrier. People are more open to socializing in English, probably because Lithuanian is a smaller language. It's also a little bit similar in Latvia and Estonia in my experience. Now, of course, if you're gonna live here long term, I do encourage you to learn Lithuanian, because you probably become a local celebrity if you are the American, the Brit, etc., who's able to speak Lithuanian, because it's going to be really rare and people are going to find you more interesting and novel for that reason. And of course, in terms of being able to socialize fully with everybody all the time, then of course it will be a big advantage. But in terms of showing up and straight, kind of turnkey, straight out of the box arrival in Vilnius in Lithuania, then definitely the fact that they speak English is good. On top of it, there are a lot of Ukrainians and Belarusians, and also small native Russian speaking population here in Vilnius. So if you happen to avoid invested time in learning Russian, Ukrainian, or Belarusian, then you'd also actually meet a lot of people here who also speak it. If you go to Kaunas, which is the second city, then people normally just speak Lithuanian and then English as a second language. That's just my experience having traveled a bit around Lithuania in the last week with my clients. So that is reason number two. Now, reason number three, the one you're probably most curious about. So like all the countries that I tend to cover on my channel, and since most of my audience is male and presumably single, reason number three to come here, if you are a single guy, is the local ladies. So Lithuanian women are renowned everywhere for their beauty. Well, if you've heard of Lithuania, maybe not as well known as, say, Russian or Ukrainians or maybe Poles, because it's a smaller country, but they are well known for that, like the rest of the women in this region in general. And in neighboring Latvia, I like to say that it's the land of the leggy blonde, whilst here in Lithuania, I would say that it's the land of the leggy brunette, because they tend to be a little less blonde here than up in Latvia, percentage-wise, but they also are pretty tall in general. That's just Lithuanians. Also, the guys are pretty tall. Actually, basketball is one of the biggest sports here, probably for that reason, because people tend to be quite tall, or at least they have a lot of very tall people, especially when out socializing. I'm 178 centimeters, and you see a lot of guys who are over 1.90 meters when you are walking around here in Lithuania. That is what I will say about kind of the aesthetic. They are from the Nordic region, tall, tend to be a bit more brunette than blonde. So if you have that stereotype about Lithuanians being blonde, it's not really so true, I must say. But definitely they are very elegant and definitely quite stunning overall. I would say the level of beauty here is comparable to the other countries that I cover, and yeah, basically this is the region, in my opinion, in the world where you're going to find the highest level of average beauty, female beauty in the world. And probably the guys are also considered reasonably good looking because they are tall and it's pretty sporty in general here, especially in Vilnius. Now that is a kind of a segue into a caveat. If you are a guy who's thinking, wow, I must come to Lithuania then, it's going to be like shooting fish in a barrel with the girls here. Here, for sure, women are not desperate. They're not looking to flee Lithuania. It's actually really pleasant with pretty good medium to long-term prospects as a country. So if you don't have much value, you're not getting any dates back home. Especially if you are a guy who is shorter than average, then probably relocating to Lithuania in terms of looking for love, probably not the best idea. However, if you are a guy who obviously is perceived as having a good amount of value and you have charisma, you know, then this is a very good place for you to come. And also, along with everything else that the country has to offer, definitely it's going to be a place that's interesting as a single guy, and I can attest to that. I've been here a few times also with my clients. We had a lot of fun here, made a lot of friends actually, whether they're guys or they are women. So that is the third reason. I know that in general, this is the reason why guys pay attention to my channel. The reason number one, maybe not the only reason, I hope. And definitely I can give a big thumbs up for the local dating market as a single guy here in Lithuania. Like basically in the rest of this region, obesity, especially for people under 35, 40, it's not really a thing. You don't see many people who are overweight. They look a lot healthier, a lot more sportive than is the case, sadly, in a lot of the core Anglosphere. So when I say core Anglosphere, I mean like the United Kingdom, the US, Canada, where obesity rates are like through the roof. And here in Lithuania, it is no different. In general, people are slim, at least under the age of 40. Maybe when they get over 40, they let themselves go a little bit. But the statistics show that overweightness, obesity is not really a thing amongst single women under the age of 35, and that is a bit of a game changer, of course, if you are a single guy here. Okay, so I have something special here, at least special from my point of view, because I've never had it before. I am about to eat beaver. Apparently, this is traditional Lithuanian food. They eat their beavers here, apparently. It's some tradition from the Middle Ages, so let me try it. This is definitely the first time I've tried this particular animal. It's a little bit chewier than, say, beef. But pleasant, it's not bad. Garo appetito, as they say, when you're eating beaver in Vilnius. Reason number 4 is the vibe here in Lithuania. Now, especially in Vilnius, it is extremely pleasant, albeit I've been here when the weather is still quite good. I'm not so sure if it's a damp and gray winter's afternoon, if it's going to feel the same way. But like, for example, just behind me, you have this, what I describe as old world architecture in general, just really beautiful here in the center of Vilnius. Also, you are going to have a lot of beautiful architecture in the other cities in Lithuania, also down in Kaunas or in Klaipėda, although some of the styles are a bit different here to Vilnius. Vilnius was in the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, and as a result, a lot of the architecture is pretty similar to what you will find in neighboring Poland. Like here we're outside Vilnius Cathedral, quite beautiful. Got the bell tower there as well. That's an iconic building here, a landmark in the center of Vilnius. Now in Kaunas, I think you have a lot of medieval architecture as well, not just this kind of later period, but basically you got beautiful old towns is what I want to say. Also in Klaipėda, there it was part of Eastern Prussia for a while, or Prussia in general, and looks a bit more similar to maybe in Germany than it does here in terms of the older architecture than here in Vilnius, for example. So you have a little bit of a mix also as you go around. So really beautiful architecture. It's very safe here. At least that's my perception. Also statistically, petty crime is not really a thing. Again, similar in this general region. It is a lot lower here than it's going to be further to the Western Europe. And walking around the evening. Doesn't seem to be very much tension or crime here. Also, I noticed that when I'm at my favorite cafe, a lot of girls, when they go to the bathroom, they leave like their laptop, even their phones and handbags unattended on their table. So obviously the perception of crime amongst the locals is pretty low here in Lithuania. It reminds me a little bit of neighboring Belarus, although Belarus is pretty much a police state. That's why there is no petty crime. So here it's not a police state, and yeah, it seems like they're doing something right on reducing petty crime, because it doesn't seem like the locals really seem overly concerned about it, especially if you spend a lot of time in Western Europe, where you're not going to leave your handbag on the table when you go to the bathroom, or your phone or any of your belongings probably anyways, because unfortunately that is a bit of an issue there. So I would say just overall the vibe, it's very pleasant. Locals are pretty friendly. The atmosphere is definitely friendlier than in neighboring Poland. And yeah, it's just a really beautiful, peaceful place to hang out that's on the up economically. And that is going to be reason number 4, and a segue into reason number 5. Okay, so my 5th and final reason for coming here to Lithuania is going to be the infrastructure and just in general, the economic development of the country. I'm also going to add a caveat at the end of this reason to come to Lithuania. So, infrastructure, they are constantly improving the roads, the buses, the trains. They do have airports here as well in Vilnius and in Kaunas, although they are smaller than, say, the kind of regional hub, which is Riga up the road in Riga in Latvia. And I'll give you an example. I always talk about in these videos about this region, but Rail Baltica is a high-speed rail line that is going to eventually connect Warsaw in Poland all the way up through Białystok, through the Suwałki Gap to here in Vilnius and in Kaunas, and then speed all the way up to Riga and then onwards to Tallinn, and then under the Baltic Sea to Helsinki. So eventually you'll be able to take a train in Helsinki in Finland, high-speed train, and go all the way through here down to the capital of Poland, Warsaw. So they're investing huge amounts of money with, of course, EU funding to build comparable infrastructure here that you would find in Western Europe. It is not up to that level yet, but they are working on getting it there. For example, there are modern trains that are really comfortable to go from Vilnius to Kaunas. We took it, and I think it was about 72 minutes. Once Rail Baltica is built, there's actually going to be just 38 minutes is a plan from Vilnius to Kaunas. And they also have a similar train that goes to the coast to Klaipėda, which is really beautiful. So that kind of infrastructure has been developed out. However, as I said, I'm going to give a caveat. If you are expecting to live in a city like New York or London in terms of like infrastructure and maybe overall just kind of like these big, huge international metropoles, then this is not the city for you. Because this is a city of 500,000 people with developing infrastructure, but this is a first world country. This is not like, as I said, a country mired in desperate poverty and decay, and it is a very pleasant experience overall. But it is important to remember that different courses for different horses, as the expression goes. So if you're looking for a Paris or say a Berlin, then Vilnius in Lithuania is probably not for you. But if you are looking for a more relaxed, mid-sized capital city in the Baltic region of Europe, and especially if you can manage your revenues remotely and you're a single guy, then probably this is a great spot for you to consider. So with that said, I'm going to go and enjoy my little stroll here in front of Vilnius Cathedral. So having watched this video, maybe harboring under the illusion that we spend our time eating beaver here in Vilnius, Lithuania. But of course, that is something that's nice to do as an experience. But on a day-to-day basis, we're going to be hanging out at the more refined parts of the city in terms of hospitality, bars, cafes, restaurants, because this city has a lot to offer in that regard as well. Several Michelin star restaurants already here in Vilnius, for example. And the client who came with me on this trip, where I'm filming at the end of, he was trying to decide between going to Riga up in Latvia where I, of course, dub it the land of the leggy blonde. And he really loved the atmosphere here in Vilnius. But you should understand that this country and the capital, the biggest city, is going to be 500,000 people. So it might not be exactly the kind of city that you were looking for in the region. Like Riga, for example, is a lot bigger. It is the biggest city in this region, and it's a central hub, but probably close to 1 million people, all combined in the metropolitan area. So maybe that's going to be more your style. Probably that's what he's going to decide to do, because it also offers the advantage in Latvia of residency. So if you're not an EU citizen, that can be quite attractive. If you invest in real estate of at least 250,000 euros, that is something, at least when I'm filming this now, that Latvia offers that the other countries don't. So see, there are lots of different elements in deciding where you should be hanging out in this region, and that is what I help my clients with. In principle, I have a premium city introduction experience. It's called the Czar experience historically, although nowadays I refer to more as the insider experience for the region, because I am known as the insider by my clients for these countries that I bring my clients to within what I've dubbed New Europe. So basically the area between Germany and Russia. And really, I propose a handful of countries that are my picks from this region, and I put them together, and I'm now referring to as emerging Europe, because I think they're also these countries that I'm picking out have great prospects going forward in the next, say, 5 to 20 years, medium to long term. And it is not for everybody. I screen my clients because you have to be a good fit. Normally I recommend that you've got a perspective to maybe spending some time here. You're not just going to come as a weekend warrior to a city like Vilnius. You're actually thinking maybe you see some perspectives for yourself long term. Like I actually met another client today because he actually happened to be in Vilnius, and he spends a lot of his time in Warsaw, where we went together, and he loves it there, but he's also thinking maybe he wants to spend some time in Ukraine. Yes, even with the Russo-Ukrainian war, I do have clients come back there. So the cities that I bring my clients to currently are obviously here in Vilnius in Lithuania, but also Riga up in Latvia, land of the leggy blonde as I often dub it, as opposed to land of the leggy brunette here. And it is on the Baltic Sea, a city of 1 million people, and definitely the regional hub in this kind of southern Baltic region, or the Baltic states. Also bring my clients to Warsaw, which is the capital of Poland, probably the capital of this entire region, the commercial capital, because it is a bigger city. I think we're getting up to 2 million people live in Warsaw nowadays. So there you go. It's going to be a bigger city again. So maybe that's going to be a better fit for you. Warsaw, of course, offers a lot. It is like the infrastructure there is fast becoming a big alpha city, so to say, in the region. That's actually a terminology, some sort of terminology that's been used in terms of its infrastructure. You're going to have Rail Baltica coming up, as I said, all the way from there through here. So in terms of the socializing, not only for the single guys do you have the pretty Poles, but you also have big diasporas of Ukrainians and Belarusians, as you have here, but it's probably even bigger in Warsaw. So you have the beautiful Belarusians and the cute Ukrainians as well. So it is probably the #1 place where my clients are interested in going to. Not always the best fit for all of them though, but that is an interesting city. Now, the other kind of climate change that we have in this region, we have, of course, Moldova, which is a lot warmer. And you have magical Moldova, as I call it, lots of great wine and friendly Moldovans and a lot of partying going on there. Smaller city, bit similar here to Vilnius, but definitely during the summertime in particular, it is a place where I bring my clients, and it is a very enjoyable place to be. And actually one of my clients has moved there recently. We just set him up with his visa. And then the other place that I'm bringing clients is Kazakhstan, all the way over on the Central Asian steppes. Obviously a different vibe to here because we're in Central Asia. There is a part of Kazakhstan that is in Europe, on the continent of Europe, and that is also reflected in the people, because big cities like Almaty, the commercial capital of Central Asia, and Astana, the capital of Kazakhstan, are probably around, give or take, 15% European and 85% Asian. So this is obviously quite a niche for some guys who want to move all the way over to Central Asia and be in the real hub of that country. But I have to say, I absolutely love Almaty in particular because it has fantastic nature nearby. So many incredible mountains, lakes, canyons. It's really quite a stunning part of the world and a great city of like over 2 million people with modern services and definitely developing quite quickly. So, and the local people, it's definitely a big pride of Kazakhstanis that they put the guest first. They really have a guest culture there. So for a lot of guys, it is also quite interesting. So as I said, it's not for everybody. You are going to have to go down and apply. There is an application form down below. And before you do that, if you're new to this channel, go check out 3 playlists. First one is going to give you a bit of a flavor to this region because I have a series of city vlogs. Second one is like a set of tutorials for the single guys who want to date the uber beautiful women, slender, elegant, good morals in this region, the 9s and 10s. And the third playlist to go check out is my vodka series. There's an enormous amount of content, long form, so be discerning and scroll through those episodes and pick out the ones that are for you. And take your shot. As a great man, Wayne Gretzky, Canuck ice hockey legend, once said, he's a Polish, Ukrainian and Belarusian origins. Not Lithuanian as far as I know, but definitely within the region. Here we have basically a Ukrainian institution, Piana Vishna, originally from Lviv in the west of Ukraine, that I featured quite a bit in my vlogs over the years. So I think I'm gonna go and actually have a sour cherry here in Vilnius just before it gets into nighttime. So Budma, as they say in Ukrainian, and maybe come here to Vilnius and you can check it out and have a little bit of Ukraine on your trip. So with that said, ciao ciao from Vilnius, Lithuania.